have x squared minus 4x equals negative 1. So the very first thing you need to do is move the constant, the plain numbers, to the other side. So normally we have to do this step, but as you can see, the plain number is already on the right side by itself, and we have the x's on the left. This is what we want to see so we can actually start the problem and complete the square. So we're going to go right into step 2. We're going to set this up, x squared minus 4x plus something equals negative 1 plus that same something. So we're trying to make a new trinomial over here, a nicer one. That something comes from b over 2 squared, that little formula. We have a and b. b is negative 4. Reminder, we're only going to divide, we're not going to do the squared part. So this becomes negative 2 squared. And we leave it like that. That's part of the factoring trick we use to make these problems easier. So that negative 2 squared is going to go in the blanks on both sides. Any questions up to this point? Okay. From here, we need to factor this down. So the trick, we have our parentheses, we have our x, and then we're going to have a squared on the outside. Inside, it's just the number that's in the parentheses up here. So that's a minus 2. X minus 2, the whole thing is squared. On the right side, we have negative 1 plus negative 2 squared. We need to be careful. Before I type this in, what is negative 2 squared? 4, a positive 4. Just want to remind you guys because this happens all the time. Why did that give me a negative 4, which we know is wrong? I put it in, no, my calculator's not wrong. I'm wrong. What'd I do wrong? You have to put it in parentheses. That's why we write it that way. If you type it the way you write it, you're going to be just fine. So, let me try it again. Negative 2 in parentheses and then square it. Now it gives me a 4. If you drop the parentheses, it will read it differently. It will read it incorrectly for what we want. So, make sure you are careful about that, please. So this is plus 4. Any questions up to this point? Because from here, I'm just solving for x. Any questions at this point? Okay, from here we're solving. X minus 2 squared equals negative 1 plus 4, that's positive 3. From here, I'm just solving for x. I need to get rid of the squared first. Square root both sides. On the left side, the square root and the square cancel each other out. On the right side, do not forget that plus or minus. It is a key part of your answer. So now we have x minus 2 equals plus or minus, what's the square root of 3? It's not nice, whatever it is, it's a decimal. So leave it as the square root of 3. Only square root it if it is a nice perfect whole number, which we will not get that here, so leave it. Lastly, we just need to get the x by itself. That's a minus 2. I will plus 2 on both sides. So we have x equals, and reminder, we put the this bottom number here first, 2, and then we'll do the plus or minus whatever after it. So 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 Yesterday when we got to this in step, we had really nice numbers, so we split it up and then we got some more nice numbers as our answer. Today we have a nice number and then a decimal is what that would be. So when you end up with something like this, you can still split it up if you want, but don't turn it into a decimal. Just leave it like that. So if you don't get nice whole numbers, just leave it. There you have it, completing the square. Any further questions on number 8 here? All right, let's do one more. And I'm actually going to alter this problem just a tiny bit. I want to change that 8 to a different number. Let me see what we did on the front. Okay, that's what I thought. Let's change that 8 into a 9. So let me write that out again. X squared plus 9x plus 12 equals negative 10. So our first step here is to make sure we only have x's on the left side. That 12 needs to get to the other side. This is a plus 12, I'll minus 12 on both sides. X squared plus 9x equals negative 10 minus 12, that's negative 22. We have only x's on the left, which is what we want. Now we can set up the completing the square. X squared plus 9x plus something equals negative 22 plus something. That something again comes from b over 2 squared. B this time is 9. We did discuss this briefly on the front with an odd number example. Just turn that into a decimal. The math on this problem is not going to be harder because we have a decimal. You can just use your calculator to figure out what you need help with. So we're going to add 4.5 squared to both sides. Next, we turn this into its factored form. That's the trick we discussed. So we got our parentheses squared. X goes in the front, and this number goes in the back. This is 4.5, and it's a positive, so we need a plus 4.5. On the right side, let's bring this down, negative 22, plus, I'll go ahead and get that 4.5 squared in my calculator. That's going to give me 20.25. Don't round that to 20.3. There's no reason to. It's still a small decimal. So if you only have 2 decimal places, just write them both out. Any questions up to this point? All I've done is complete the square. All right. We have x plus 4.5 squared equals, and I'm going to add these real quick. Negative 1.75. As you can see, I'm out of space, so I'm going to move this and rewrite it again on the right side to finish the problem. We have x plus 4.5 squared equals negative 1.75. Couple more steps and we're going to be done. Just like before, first thing we need to do is get rid of that square, so I'll square root both sides. Don't forget that important plus or minus in the front. Square and square root are going to cancel each other. So we have x plus 4.5 equals plus or minus. I need to fix something here before I just copy that down. What's the problem with that square root? The negative. What do I need to do? Daniel? Yes. When we have a negative under the square root, take it out and put it in front, and we're going to write it as I. Replace it with the I. And then write the square root without the negative. So now it's just a positive 1.75. Again, I know this looks like a lot, but we are basically done. We have a plus 4.5. Let's move it. Minus 4.5 on both sides. X equals, write the negative 4.5 first. Negative 4.5. And then what's above? Plus or minus I square root of 1.75. This is the furthest thing from a nice answer, so we're not even going to bother splitting it up. Let's just leave it like this. Box it up and go on with our day. Any further questions on number 9 here?